First thing you're going to hear from sales, please don't touch the contract. You're doing everything you possibly can to lose this job for me. Most sales guys are commission-based, so they're going to get a little touchy about it. You're a professional, so have that conversation with the person in their office that you can walk through it with. Hey, I know that if we don't sell products or services, I don't have a job either. So it's in my best interest. I'm a for-profit corporation. I work for a for-profit corporation. This is how we go to market. But it's got to be fair. I can't do work and not know if I'm going to be paid. So let's talk about what's in this contract. The thing that's going to work for you in your favor as you're negotiating these is most people don't push back. Most people don't ask questions. And if your reputation is good and you've got that quality of work and you've got that relationship, they're going to compromise with you. They might bow up, they might threaten to go elsewhere, and you may genuinely lose some customers, but typically they come back because of your quality of service and because of your pricing or because of whatever the relationship there is. Very few go away because of that contract. I've lost very few contracts due to pushing back. It's a skill. It's like anything. You're going to have to learn how to be able to have these conversations with people and to walk through, hey, look, this isn't fair to us. Let me explain why. I can't fund your project. We've talked a lot about contracts. One thing that's really challenging for a contracts administrator or a credit manager is some of those contracts are pretty lengthy, and they come with a lengthy set of instructions, like don't write on anything, don't change anything, don't do anything, just sign it and be glad you got this. Now, as a credit manager, I don't have time to engage in this lifetime movie of how I'm going to solve this. But I do need to be able to address these things that are on here, and it says don't touch it. What are some ways that I can legally approach this and be able to carve those pieces out?
Sure. Well, I think negotiating contracts should always be transparent. I think there's a couple of points to that. If you're contracting with someone and they say you have to just sign our contract or walk away, that should be a big red flag going up, because any savvy company should be willing to negotiate certain points of their contracts. And they certainly have the resources to do it. I mean, we see this a lot. The larger the company is, the stronger they are on we don't negotiate. But they also means they probably have the resources to negotiate. They may have a legal team. They may have in-house, out-house counsel. They may be doing things that are illegal in the state where the work's being performed. So the negotiation benefits not only your client or who you're working with, but those parties as well, because they could have provisions stricken. So I think if you need to push back, in other words, if you're not willing to negotiate a contract, that should give you a big warning sign of whether you want to do business with that person. Now, once you get them to agree that they are willing to negotiate, I think, as I was stating, it should be transparent, meaning let's get this on a Word document, whatever software you want, and we're going to track our changes. We're going to redline them. So you send me your contract, and I'm going to make revisions. I'm going to show you every revision I have. I'm going to put little notes into why I'm changing things, and this law requires this, etc., so that you can have an open dialogue about it. What really scares me is when you do that, and then you send it to the other side, and things come back where they've accepted 2 or 3 of your things, they're not tracking their changes, and so that's another big red flag to realize, okay, they're not being open and transparent with what they're doing with this contract. And so then you need to find your software and do a comparison. You need to actually see, you can run it in Word and other softwares where you can see, okay, they changed all these little things here that they didn't tell you about. And that's the time where you have an honest conversation. Say, look, if we're going to do this, you need to track these changes, and we're going to come to an agreement on terms that we're both aware of. We're not going to sneak things in. So I think number one, be very wary of any company that's not willing to negotiate at all. And number two, do it in a transparent basis, because you want to do it all in the same document. We were talking off camera about some companies say, we don't mess with this contract, but we will do an addendum. That's fine. It takes longer and it's a little bit more detailed, but we want to go in that direction. And getting to the other issue of when you are doing the negotiation, if you can't do it in one document, which I prefer, which is going to be cheaper to pay me to edit in one document, the other party can see it, we can see all the changes. If they want their form contract and are willing to do an addendum, that's okay. It takes a little bit more time, but you have to say, delete this line and replace with this line. It's much more tedious, but look, if they're willing to negotiate, so be it, and we can do it that way.
That is really great advice. My challenge is typically when those contracts come in, they come in at the last minute, We got a work order. They want the work to start tomorrow. They want materials or crews on the ground. And we're fighting back and forth with this contract.
Sure.
As a credit manager or a contract administrator, I'm sitting there saying, I know, we're putting the brakes on this, and I'm gonna sit down like a mule in the dirt. We're not going anywhere.
Sure.
This is what's happening. But you've got sales and the company vice president or president going, well, yeah, I know this guy. I've known him for a really long time. Good. He's a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just, Thea, you just need to calm down. We're just going to roll with it.
Sure.
Arm me with some key words and phrases that I can use back on them to kind of put that your lawyer wisdom on them.
Well, I think number one is we go back to read your contract. If you haven't read or signed it, you don't know what you've agreed to. So you've started work without an agreement in place. The good guy that you're talking to may not be the guy who writes the checks. And so I think you just need to, and we deal with this every day, where for whatever reason contracts are always on fire. I do a lot of litigation, but I'm drafting a couple contracts a week usually, and it's always we need it tomorrow. A couple things you need to do. Number one, pump the brakes. We have to have an agreement before work can be performed. And you can get we've done circumstances on very large projects where there really is a time-sensitive issue where you're doing a quick 1 or 2 page memorandum of understanding saying, these are the general terms, we're starting with the earthwork, we're doing this preparatory work, we're starting the design, whatever it is, we're going to enter into a formal contract within the next couple weeks. And that gets something in writing, and I can throw one of those together in an hour, and you can be on your way, and you've got something in writing to protect you. But I think the point is, stop a second. This needs to be read, it needs to be evaluated, because this great job you just got may be horrible once you read what's in here. So I think number one is take a step back. We have to read this. There should be negotiation. And number two is that's when it really benefits you to have an attorney who knows construction law, who knows the issues, and has the capacity to jump on something for it. Because it's an unfortunate reality of what I do. Litigation may take years, and you have a month to prepare for a hearing. When a contract comes in the morning, they may need it that afternoon. And so you have to be willing or able to work that into your day to get it done. I struggle with it all the time, but I think it's an unfortunate reality of the construction industry. It needs to be done now, and we need the contract reviewed now. So I think it's two-pronged.
When we talk about fairness and balance in a contract, think of it as standing up in a hammock. You're trying to figure out where to put your feet and how to make that as level as possible. A relationship only works if there's fairness in it. It can't be all one-sided. I can't fund your project unconditionally, but here's what I can do. So be prepared. Don't be so set on what you're looking for that you never think about the other side. So you've got to have that balance, and you've got to be prepared to give a little. Nobody likes to feel like they were completely played. So you're going to have to use that balance. But you've also got to be comfortable calling people out on it, but doing it in a way that leaves them some dignity. If you go up to them and say, listen, you are a complete asshole with this, you're going to get a lot of pushback, and they're going to bow up, and they're going to get defensive, and you're not going to get anywhere. Once you get through that middle ground and you're able to set that tone, you may not ever have to do this with this company again, because you'll get their contracts, you'll be able to go through them, you'll be able to redline them, you'll move forward. But then you've got a nice, fair, and balanced process moving forward, and both sides get to win. You get a win-win walking away. When you're looking at contract negotiation, it sounds really great when I'm sitting here saying, you should do this, it should be fair, it should be balanced. I'm also taking all the emotion out of it. And I'm taking out that typically contracts come in at the last minute. You've got crews that are waiting to roll out onto the job site. The contractor waited till the 11th hour to go, oh, by the way, Thea, here's my 130-page contract. And then you're having to go through it. So a lot of times it's last minute. So one contract that came in last minute, I had just had my second baby, and just put him down for a nap, and hey, we've got to get this contract read. This was before a lot of opportunity to be able to send it electronically, so met him down at the office with baby in tow, who was asleep. We were going back and forth, pretty much over what I thought was reasonable. He thought was every line in there, and he at one point slammed his hands down and said, Jesus Christ, Thea, is there anything in this contract that you absolutely, like? And then he said a few more random choice words, and now I'm looking at my baby, who is getting ready to wake up and is going to be crying, and at the time I was breastfeeding, so it was not going to go well for either one of us. So, kind of used a little bit of a threatening mode. I'm like, listen, if that kid wakes up because you can't keep it together, you're going to breastfeed him. And if you wrote a contract that was fair, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So you get your shit together. We both kind of looked at the baby because I think he realized, oh, I kind of lost it on a new mom, which, he's lucky I didn't just resort to tears. Baby settled down. We finished working through the contract at a whisper, and we both went home in a much better place. The baby is a great analogy to put in there, but it's just a reminder that people are human. They get caught up. This is what they know. What's on this piece of paper is what they know. They might not have the authority to make changes, or they might not be comfortable making changes. But you've got to be able to back them in using logic. Hey, this is why this doesn't work for us. And we'll pick on giving up lien rights. I can't perjure myself and sign a lien waiver in this that says I have been paid when I have not. Because if something goes wrong and I have to stand in front of a judge with this, I'm going to have to tell him that I lied. I can't do that. This is just a small taste of a much larger class. You can take the full class for free at levelset.com. Join me.